If you have said to yourself, I should write that, or if someone has said to you, you should write that, then I'm talking to you because you need to write. And that's why you're tuned in to Why Write. Hi, welcome to Why Write. I'm your host, Angela Grout, and thank you for tuning into this episode of Why Write, where we learn why writers are writing, what they're writing, and perhaps if you're a writer, you're going to learn something from this episode to find out how you can start writing your story too. Today, I have a Zoom guest who's coming in all the way from across the continent here. She is a former dancer and actress and a Hollywood costume designer, and now she is the author of 2 books. She continually inspires her students, and I know she's going to inspire you too, especially when you learn that she's 85 years old, and she is a prime example of what is possible when we age. Her name is Diana Eaton, and she is an avid traveler, and she has just completed her 2nd book, which is properly titled Getting Old and Other Indignities. Her first book is Stars in Their Underwear. So we're going to talk about how she was working with big celebrities, and we're going to maybe find out who's got the best underwear. I don't know. But let me please introduce Diana Eaton. Diana, thank you so much for coming on the show.
I'm happy to be here, really.
And I know you're all the way in California, and you have been out there for a very long time.
Las Vegas. Las Vegas.
Yes, Las Vegas.
Yeah, it used to be California.
And you have been working in the, I'm going to say, show business industry for many, many years. And
many decades.
Many decades. That's right, decades. Yes, I was a florist for many decades, so I definitely understand talking about the decades. And it's so great when we do something that we love for so long.
Yes.
Congratulations on writing your 2nd book.
Thank you.
And I want to ask you, like, what is the key to being so productive in your 80s that you're like, I'm going to write another book?
Oh my goodness. I don't know if there's one key. I think if you stay involved in things other than, the local things around you, if you stay involved with other people, with other interests, with other communities even, it'll keep your mind alive and you'll be curious. And I became curious about my own process of aging. And I thought, well, if I'm looking at this and investigating this, maybe I should write about it as I'm aging.
Yeah, well, and your book titled Getting Old, I mean, it's something that we all want to do because it beats the alternative.
Exactly.
So, and you were talking about, like, when you were retiring, like, so many people, I believe, think, okay, we're going to work really hard and then retire. And then, when did you feel it was time to retire? And what was the struggle with that decision? And then how did you have this glamorous career, which you, retired from. However, when did you decide you were going to walk away from this career? And tell us a little bit about the career too.
Well, actually, the first time I retired, and I retire almost monthly. But the first time I was in Los Angeles, where I spent 35 years, I was designing a very successful NBC soap opera called Passions. And soap operas were starting to lose viewership, and they were starting to cost a lot of money. And the studios, they want to always find ways to cut corners. So, the soap operas very often have 20, 25 people on full-time, contract, and lots of sets and costumes and all of that. So
you did all the costume designs with set design.
I did 5 years of costume design for Passions. And then actually what happened is the show got canceled. Now, I was 68 And a lot of the producers seemed to be getting younger and younger. The producers that I knew were all retiring themselves. So it kind of felt like the writing was on the wall. If I remained unemployed for a long time, we would go through a ton of money. So um, my husband and I decided to retire to Las Vegas, which had the same kind of showbiz appeal and lovely weather. And, so this was our choice to retire. But once we made the move, I felt very disconnected from my world. I felt disconnected from all the people that I saw every day, from the structure of it, from the moment to moment challenges that I was able to solve. And I felt totally useless and lonely and just kind of cut off. So bit by bit, I crept back in and I started working on a low budget films here in Las Vegas.
So you retire, but then you kind of go back into it.
Yeah.
And like you said, you're in your 60s then. So as much as you've had this very long career doing costume designs and worked with
Yeah.
some very fabulous and incredible people.
Yeah.
um, you've definitely kind of came back around to get back into it, but then you started
Mhm.
writing. Like,
Yeah.
when did you start writing and why did you decide to like kind of, write? And your first book was about celebrities in their underwear. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it's a funny
Yeah.
title. It's definitely,
Yeah. Yeah.
a memoir. So, what made you write that?
Well, I knew that I had a lot of stories that I'd sort of accumulated in my brain over the years. And I'd written blogs, short stories in a sense about some of my experiences. And I kind of wanted to turn it into a book. So I started to map out a kind of a timeline. And then I realized I wanted to go back to the very beginning and also include my dancing career on Broadway because I was on Broadway at a time that I think was just a golden era. I'm sure everyone thinks their era is the era, but
No, no, tell us
um,
about the air.
well, I was working with Stephen Sondheim and Hal Prince and Carol Burnett and Zara Mostel. And right down the street, Dolly was Hello Dolly. And right down the street and the other way, Barbara Streisand had just opened in Funny Girl, which was a huge hit. So I was surrounded by shows that were, really history making and by stars of the, highest order. So it was a great, great time. So that
You're,
was really the first half of the book is my career as a dancer. And then the second half of the book was my transition to costume design and how that started sort of slow and then built and built and eventually I found myself working full time designing television dramas and sitcoms and movies and you know
have you
all of
always
that.
been into fashion?
Yes, I've always loved fashion, um and I've always loved clothes, just clothes. um from teenage years I wanted a ton of clothes.
You've lived a life that's like I can only dream of. I would have loved to have danced on Broadway. So thank you for doing it for me because
Bless you.
it's fabulous. So as a writer, I have to ask you, like when you're writing about, working with celebrities like
Yeah,
Carol Burnett and George Clooney and
yeah,
Diana Ross and Betty
yeah,
White, I mean, these are
yeah.
people you've seen in their underwear.
Yes.
When you've written the stories about them, do you need to get their permission? How do they feel about you kind of tell all?
Well, the only person that I ever signed a NDA was Diana Ross. And I mean, the others were just people that we were working with every day. I think it was sort of before everybody got paranoid or, the whole era of celebrity gossip and the internet. Um, so I really didn't ask permission. These were my experiences, and I own the experience. Um, and I'm also not a negative person. I wasn't going in there to tell dirty stories and, gossipy things.
I,
So,
I
you know,
love that you said you own the experience
yeah.
because it's so true. Like, especially when we're writing our memoirs, like, when you're telling something from what you remember, that's the
Hmm.
experience you have. I mean, you and I can both
Yeah.
write something about this episode
Yeah.
today, and we're both
Yeah.
going to experience something a little differently, and
Yeah.
we own that experience.
Yeah. The only thing I cut out, I had written when I was writing about working with Diana Ross, I wrote a couple of pages about going up to her house in Greenwich, Connecticut, and my impression of that house and how her three daughters, who were then little girls, were peeking in my room to take a look at me and see, and I felt like maybe that was not necessary. It was an interesting experience for me, but now I'm talking about her house and her daughters and her kitchen, and
Yeah.
it just felt like that was intrusive. So I took it out.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's like where you kind of, as we say, like trim the fat on a story, where is it
Yeah,
necessary to have it in there? And is it
yeah,
something that is gonna expose slash embarrass, someone that, you don't need to know those details. But again, you're seeing these stars in their underwear. Like, what kind
yeah.
of underwear does George Clooney wear?
Well, I mean, it's a funny title because obviously it's a double entendre. Yes.
Yes.
When we're in the fitting room, we are with the actors, when they, trim down to basically nothing because we're trying on clothes.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also metaphorical.
Yes.
I've seen these celebrities at their most vulnerable moments and behind the scenes when they don't have their persona on, you know.
And you
Um,
help to create some of their personas with
oh,
these lavish costumes. I mean, I'm gonna,
totally.
call
Yes,
them
indeed.
costumes, which is amazing because even when you think like soap operas, people dress more, a little bit more like an everyday person.
Hmm.
However, I mean, it really does give them their style. It gives the personality to the character.
Absolutely. That's really the job of a costume designer is to work with the actor to bring out um, the character, and the clothing is like the outward manifestation of that character. We all dress a certain way, and whether we realize it or not, we're revealing a little bit about ourselves. So we heighten that in TV and film, and we make sure that every person has their own look.
Did you study costume design?
Very little.
So,
Because I got into it so late. But I do feel like I studied costume design while assisting Bob Mackie. I worked with him for 2 years, and pretty much everything I learned about costume design, I learned observing him.
uh,
His way of working with actors, performers, his perfectionism, just everything. So I had a unique opportunity.
that's
Um,
amazing. I
yeah,
always think that the best way to learn something is hands-on.
yeah, oh
Hands
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Did you study writing?
Oh no, no, never,
Again,
never.
hands on. I mean, I
No,
didn't I didn't study floral design and I was a florist, a high
yeah,
designer for 33 years, so I
yes,
get it. Like when you
yes.
get into it, you
Mm,
you can do it.
yes.
When you started writing, like
Mhm.
because you didn't study it, how did you start? I mean, besides picking up a pen and writing, did you know what you were going to be writing?
Yes. And I do want to sort of correct when I say I never studied writing. I have to give a shout out to our mutual organization, the International Women's Writers Guild, because I had written the first draft of my book, just from memories and from old blogs um, and then I went to a summer conference and realized, that I needed a story arc. I
Yeah.
needed a theme. I needed to capture people at the very beginning of each paragraph,
Yes.
about each chapter rather.
Yeah.
And
The International Women's Writers Guild, I cannot speak highly of. I'm proud
Yeah,
that we're sisters in this
yeah,
sister organization. And I mean, I discovered them during the pandemic because they were doing a lot online.
yes,
And,
yeah,
it was really great for someone who's like that, writer at home, closeted
yeah,
writer, to get that experience. Because,
yeah,
like you said, you start to learn what the story arc is and how to introduce your characters.
yes,
And
yes,
their in-person conferences in the summer, I can't speak
yeah,
highly.
yeah.
I mean, I can. They're awesome.
Indeed, they're wonderful, and I learned so much from some of those writers and teachers, and um, that I use their wisdom every day when I'm writing.
So you wrote your first book, and then
Hmm.
a few years later, you decided you were going to write another book about getting older and
Yep.
again contemplating, I guess, retiring again. And you had a lot of things that changed in your life. I know your husband had
Yeah.
passed away. My
Yes.
deepest condolences. How did that affect you to start writing again? Between retiring from costume design and adjusting to widowed life.
Well, first of all, the whole word retiring is kind of foreign to me. Retiring sort of means pulling back, withdrawing. And I don't ever want to pull back from life, or from feelings or experiences. So um, I was, it all germinates up in the brain. Yeah. And I started thinking about things that concern me about getting old. And then I went back and I thought, well, when did you first start to actually feel older? Because
Hmm.
you don't feel older for a long time.
Yeah.
Maybe the body's changing, you don't have the great body you used to have, and you see a few more sags and things like that. But you kind of look in the mirror and you kind of see the same person. But then in my 70s, my stamina was going down, and I was still trying to work in films, which is
Here you.
notorious for long hours. And I realized that I was trying to work alongside, 30-year-olds on doing 12 and 14-hour days. So that was the first wake-up call. And then I lost my husband when I was 75, and that really, because it was so unexpected, um, gave me, how can I put it? I had no choice but to examine my life and how I was going to continue it.
Mhm.
And that is a process that many, many, many women will eventually have to face, because we usually last longer than our husbands and the men in our lives.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, not
yeah,
only do we last longer, I like that, but it's that when you were saying like you start to feel older, like you're trying to and not compete, you're trying to keep up with these 30-year-olds,
yeah,
but your body is letting you know the miles on it.
yes,
And
exactly.
you have to take care of your body in a
Hmm.
different way. So
Yeah,
that whole transition, whether it's when it starts, in menopause, or afterwards, there are these like epiphanetic moments,
yeah, yes,
I've even found, and I'm 55, but knowing like, okay, it's time to make a change. How do I not necessarily pivot, but just adjust my life to continue to do what I love?
yeah. I think life is a continual reset. I really do. Um, we tend to put things in categories and say, okay, now I'm this old, or now I'm that old, and now I'm going through middle age or this age. And really, you're constantly resetting and readjusting. And I think if you don't, then you will just kind of slide down into a really boring old age.
Now, did you have a life goal of at some point in your life to say, I'm going to write a book about what my life's been about? No.
No, never had that.
It just evolves. You just woke up one day and said, I'm going to write a book about getting old so everybody realizes that they don't have to feel old, they can just get old.
Exactly, exactly. And really the book helped me in my own examination of what was present and what was ahead. I have no children and I live far from my family, so that adds some anxiety. And I thought I better take a look at this and see what is ahead for me, and how I can reset my attitudes and not be fearful. So by the end of the book, I had really changed, I believe, and changed, less fearful of the future.
When you're writing, I mean, it definitely seems like, you were having that stream of consciousness, having, journaling. Did you know that you were going to be publishing this book? Did you know who your audience was going to be when you were actually writing Getting Old and
Oh
Other
yeah,
Indignities? You
yeah.
did.
I mean, if getting old is in the title, you kind of know who your target audience is. And in fact, last week, one of my professors that I work with at the university bought a number of copies and gave them to my students. And I thought, these poor students, they're 20 years old, what are they going to do? Are they going to pick this book up and say, woo, I can't wait to read this? But it was very, very sweet of the professor to do that. And who knows, maybe they will read it.
I would read it at that age, and of course I read it at this age. And it
Yeah.
is inspiring because there's so many times in life where I think people have, kind of been groomed that you're going to get to a certain age and you just
Fade away.
exist.
Fade
You
away.
fade away.
You become
And to
invisible and irrelevant.
Yeah, so writing, when you were writing this book, I know we had talked a little bit about how, it kind of gave you your, got you back dancing into the world,
Yes. Yeah.
and it gets you out of your funk, no matter what your age is, to know that you still can make a difference in the world, whether it's,
Yeah.
on a large scale, like writing a book that's sharing your experiences
Mhm.
to help someone else, or even just empowering people to know, like, there's things you can still do.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. Culturally, we have been so indoctrinated with the idea that, you get old and you get stupid and you get feeble.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I hope to show that, I mean, the body is going to do what it's going to do. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, I'm not going to have illnesses. I broke a bone a year ago, the first bone I'd ever broken, broke my ankle.
Oh,
Things, are going to happen. And the older I get, the more likely they are to happen. But at the same time, we don't have to be treated like we're invisible. And it's very important culturally to make that shift, I believe.
so what do you want people to take away when they're reading Getting Old from your experience?
Um, that there are many choices. There's choices about um, how we look at life, how we interact, um, how we behave to stay as healthy as possible, um, and that, fear is the worst enemy.
Yeah.
We all think we're going to end up in some horrible nursing home that, staring into space. And, the truth is, I can't remember the exact statistic, but it's not a huge one. A lot of
Yeah.
people age, with relatives or in their own home and don't go into these places that we've pictured as being absolutely horrible.
Well, the wonderful thing about writing is it doesn't matter how old you are, you can do it. You can
Yeah,
start at
yes,
any age. So
exactly.
it's definitely empowering to know that, you're writing in your 80s and, people can still tell their story
Yeah,
however they want to do it.
yeah.
I'm super fascinated, super impressed with the career that you've had in show business. I mean, as a dancer, as a designer, working with all these incredible celebrities who have influenced your life and influenced my life, you know, like, can I ask you, like, maybe, like, what was one of your favorite movies that you designed for? Or,
Well, I loved doing, it wasn't the film, but it was a TV series based on the film, A League of Their Own. It was like redoing the movie because we had Penny Marshall directing and writing. We had Gary Marshall, her brother, participating. We had Tom Hanks directing one episode. Um, and we went out on location and filmed all the baseball scenes. And, I got to go and find all these wonderful 1940s clothes. And
it's so cool.
yes, it really was.
That's so cool. And when you're working on the set, are you there all day for every set as the costume
Um,
designer?
as a designer, I'm usually there in the beginning of the day to make sure everything is set up correctly. I may have fittings with other actors that haven't been fit yet and aren't filming until a week later. I may still have shopping to do. So I kind of come and go. But I have a crew that works with me that's responsible for making sure everything is going perfectly if I'm not on set.
Nice. So you are definitely the epitome of a multitasker because you're creating jobs for other people also.
Oh, yeah.
Because someone like you, it's like you need to clone yourself. Um, and so are you still dancing? I mean, I know you said you broke your ankle last year,
No,
so
no,
no.
no. I don't have the energy to dance anymore.
I
But
know.
thank
I
you
was
for
a
thinking.
dancer for almost 30 years. I
Yeah,
taught for 12 years and
yeah.
definitely had the dream of being a Rockette. I was a Mary Ann Rockette, which is a local studio here.
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
still will break out into a time step here and there.
Oh, good for you.
Uh,
Good for
but
you.
I got knee replacements, so
Ah,
that's
yes.
definitely adjusted how I
Yeah,
dance. But
yeah.
I think when it's inside you, I still dance inside and
Oh, I dance inside. Yes, absolutely. If I go to the ballet, the Nevada Ballet, I support them every season, and inside I'm dancing. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I like to say like I used to tap on a stage and now I tap on a page.
Yes, yes.
And
Yep.
just to share the experience, for someone who hasn't danced, if they read a
Yeah.
story about someone dancing, that's wonderful. And
Yes, yes.
and
It
the key is just to keep dancing through life. My studio that I taught at, their motto was keep smiling and keep dancing. Like
yeah,
if your shoe falls off, you just keep smiling.
keep dancing.
You
Yes, yeah.
and that is the key of for me I think of getting older is if you can keep smiling and keep dancing, which the word dancing meaning doing something that you love, something
That you love.
productive,
Yes.
that can help
Yeah.
other people.
And the interaction, I mean, they've found that one of the really best ways to maintain health in aging is your interactions with other people. People who kind of withdraw and sit in their house all day and watch television and don't interact, they're much likely to decline. But
Yeah.
people who have groups that they interact with and you know whether it's people their own age or younger people. And I like to do a mix of each.
So what's next for you? What's your next task or next thing you're working on? Will you do another book?
If something inspires me, I mean, I don't know if life in my late 80s and early 90s is going to be interesting enough to write about, but if a spark comes, maybe I'll write more stories. It's not in me now. I've just birthed this second book. So,
Yes. And
you
you're
know.
doing a lot with it too on social media and at local things like, talk a little
Mhm.
bit about like how you're promoting the book and what you're doing with your book talks to get people's interested in buying the book and hearing
Yeah.
the story.
Well, I mean, the way to publicize a book these days is totally on social media. And, I have a friend, a young friend in her 40s who's built a very successful business and knows all about this and has thousands of followers. And I asked her to help me. And, some of it is difficult because you've got to post every day, two or three times, and you feel very narcissistic doing it.
Yes.
I keep thinking, oh, people are going to be so tired of hearing from me and Diana this and book that, and but you have to do it. And
Yes. It's a
I don't know if
self-promotion.
it's promotion, it's to make people aware because they say that when something comes across your consciousness the first time, you notice it, but and then the
Yeah.
second time, and maybe the third time you start to think, oh, I think I know that title. And it
Yeah.
takes six times for them to see something where they actually make a move. So I'm told.
That's that's great advice for all artists out there trying to
Yeah,
get their message or their product
yeah,
out there because
yeah,
it really is true because the only one who can really talk about their books or their artwork or something is the person creating it. And if you have the
yeah,
passion to share it, then
yeah,
it's contagious.
exactly. And I want to reach, a certain number of women. Um, There are books about aging, there are groups, there are discussions, there are Substacks, and it's a lot of work because it's a huge world out there. And every time I go on Substack and then I see, that there's 50 other Substacks and they all have followers. And, you really have to research where your audience is and try and get to them.
Yeah. Oh, this has been fabulous. So I just want to throw this out there, a little thing. Like if you happen to be having a holiday party and you're inviting any of these celebrities to your house, I would love an invitation. I would love to sit down with some of these people and interview them and talk to them. I mean,
Yes,
oh my gosh, I always think I would love to write a show kind of like the Carol Burnett show because I just
yes,
think like that kind of show needs to be back out there. It's hilarious.
I
It's
know.
that there's not a lot of shows out there that are just like that can just get you into another world that makes you laugh,
Yeah,
and just enjoy it because there's so many of those reality shows out there right now and
yeah, yeah,
crime stories and things.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, things
yeah.
like
Now
that.
that the days of the old variety shows they seem to be gone. Maybe they'll come
Nope,
back.
I'm gonna bring them back. I've been doing some
Okay.
vaudeville routines and I'm an old soul, so I'm all ready for to bring it all back in for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Where can people find not only the book Getting Old and Other
Mhm.
Indignities, but they can also find your other book, Stars in Their Underwear?
They can find both books on Amazon.com. You just need to go on the website and search by the name and the title, and both books are there. If you can't find them, just go on my website, and there's lots of little buttons and links. And my
And your
website is
website is?
DianaEdenDesigns.com. And
We'll
if
put
all
all
else,
those links here for sure.
yeah. And if all else fails, remember my name, Diana Eden, Google me, and there'll be a lot of little ways to get to me.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. I'm so glad it worked out that we could
Thank
Zoom
you.
across country like we're in the
Isn't
same
it amazing?
room.
I
And
know.
I am excited to have this new friendship with you and just to
Yes,
follow you and
yes.
see where you're going and what you're going to do because you really are, you inspire me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Hmm.
Thank you. And I want to thank the audience and Studio 954 for making this show possible. I love to interview writers. I'm a curious person, which means I guess I'll live for a long time. I always say I'm going to live to 130, and maybe my age or my weight, but either way, I'll be happy. I hope that this show has inspired you to start writing your story, or at least inspired you to go pick up the book and read it, because Diana Eaton's book is absolutely fabulous. So thank you for tuning into this episode of Why Write. I will give you your writing prompt because I never let a show end without giving you a prompt. So when the show's done, set your timer for just 2 or 3 minutes because today we did talk about growing old and getting older, and we're all going to do that. And there are so many things you can do in your life still. So think about when you were a child and the things you wanted to do in your life, or maybe there's some new thought that just has sprung up that you want to do and start. We're not going to call it a bucket list. We're going to call it a goal list. So just make a list of the things that you want to do now that you are growing older because you're older and you can make your own decisions and do what you want to do. And there's a lot of life to live. So do that for your prompt today. That's your homework. And thank you for tuning into Why Write. I am your host, Angela Grout. Please check out all of the books for all of my guests that are on the show. The links for Diana Eaton's books are at the bottom. So are my books. So please share this episode, subscribe to the podcast wherever you're watching it, if it's on YouTube or Amazon, Apple, Spotify, whatever it is. I thank you so much and have a great day. See ya.
Hi.